From Neural Newscast, this is Nerfed, where games, culture, and strategy intersect.
I am Vanessa Calderon.
And I'm Marcus Shaw. It is March 7th, 2026, and the industry is currently acting like there is a Category 5 hurricane on the horizon, and its name is Grand Theft Auto.
Honestly, Marcus, the vibes in the corporate boardrooms are giving pre-apocalypse. Every time we get a fresh report from the Financial Times, it is the same story. Sony and Microsoft are basically holding their breath and moving their entire chessboards just to avoid being crushed by the GTA 6 launch window. It is like everyone else's 2026 roadmap is written in pencil while Rockstar is carving theirs into stone. We're seeing studios push back massive AAA projects by months because nobody wants to be the game that launched 3 days after the trailer for GTA 6 drops, let alone the game itself. The Financial Times report specifically mentioned that third-party publishers are literally calling Sony and Microsoft to ask for safe windows where they won't be overshadowed. It's a logistical nightmare. The industry has never seen a single title dictate the fiscal year of its competitors to this degree. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar shift in marketing spend as companies try to find gaps in the cultural conversation that just aren't there. If you're a CEO, you aren't just thinking about your game's quality, you're thinking about the sheer gravity of Rockstar's brand and how it might pull all the talent, all the attention, and all the money toward a single release for months on end. The launch velocity expected here is not just high, it is unprecedented. And the fear is that any game released within 90 days of Rockstar's debut will simply fail to reach its necessary engagement targets because the player base is occupied elsewhere.
Wild! It is not just paranoia, though. The FT is reporting that both giants are bracing for a massive shift in consumer spending. When a game that big drops, the rest of the industry basically stops existing for 6 months. Sony is looking at how to position the PS5 Pro as the ultimate way to play it, while Microsoft is trying to figure out how Game Pass fits into a world where everyone is only playing one thing. If you're Sony, you have to lean into the hardware advantage. They want every GTA fan to feel like they are missing out if they aren't on the Pro. But for Microsoft, the challenge is engagement. If their 40 million subscribers all go buy a Rockstar game on a different platform or just stop playing Game Pass titles to focus on GTA, the subscription model looks a lot less stable to investors. They are terrified that engagement metrics across the board will just fall off a cliff. I have heard rumors that Microsoft is even considering internal delays for some of their biggest first-party stuff, just to make sure they don't get buried. It's a defensive crouch that we haven't seen in the console wars since, well, maybe ever. The ripple effect is going to hit hardware sales, peripheral manufacturers, and even digital storefront revenue. Everyone is preparing for a world where the only game that matters is one they don't actually own the rights to, forcing them to find value in the margins of someone else's success.
It is wild to see the two biggest platform holders essentially playing defense. But it's not just about when the games come out. It's about how they're made. The BBC put out a piece this week that really caught my eye regarding generative AI. They are saying we are past the experiment phase. AI is starting to generate entire playable environments now. We aren't just talking about textures anymore. We're talking about structural code and geometry being spun up on the fly. The BBC report details how several major studios are using what they call world general engines to handle the heavy lifting of open world design. Instead of an artist spending 3 weeks placing every trash can and street lamp in a city block, they're using models to iterate on those layouts in seconds. It allows for a scale that was previously impossible without a 1,000-person art team. But the ethical and creative implications are massive. If the machine is building the world, what happens to the environmental storytelling that makes a game world feel human? Are we moving toward a future where games are huge but hollow?
Or can these tools actually free up designers to focus on the fun instead of the labor? The industry is betting billions on the idea that AI can solve the ballooning development costs of the AAA space. But there is no guarantee that players won't notice a lack of soul in these procedurally generated metropolises.
Yeah, that BBC report is fascinating because it moves the needle from just making textures look better to actual structural generation. From a dev perspective, that is a double-edged sword. It could mean massive, reactive worlds that we couldn't build by hand. But it also raises some serious questions about the human element of level design. Think about the procedural generation we saw in the past. It often felt empty. But if this new tech can replicate human-led intentionality, the workload for environment artists changes overnight. We are seeing a shift where the skill set for a level designer is becoming more about prompt engineering and asset curation than actual vertex manipulation. If you can generate a forest that feels organic and unique in 10 minutes, the cost of development drops. But the barrier to entry for smaller studios might actually go up because they can't afford the proprietary AI models that the big guys are building. It's a strange paradox where technology makes things easier, but also deepens the divide between the haves and the have-nots. If you have the data and the compute power to train these world-building models, you can produce content at a rate that a human-only team could never hope to match. We're looking at a possible future where the quality of a game is tied directly to the efficiency of the underlying neural network rather than the size of the creative team.
We are seeing the fallout of that pressure already.
Look at Nacon. They recently filed for insolvency just weeks before they were supposed to launch Greedfall 2. That is the reality for the mid-tier right now. They're stuck between the rising costs of competing with high-fidelity titles and the shrinking window of player attention. Greedfall 2 was supposed to be their flagship title for the year, the one that proved they could play in the big leagues. But the financial strain of maintaining a mid-sized studio in today's economy is brutal. Between high interest rates and the all-or-nothing nature of modern game launches, Nacon just couldn't bridge the gap. It's heartbreaking because Greedfall had a real following. It was that classic Euro-jank RPG that people loved for its heart and its unique setting. Now, with the parent company in insolvency, the future of that sequel is in total limbo. It's a warning shot to every other publisher in that AA space. If you don't have a massive hit, the floor can fall out from under you at any moment. The collapse of a mid-tier giant like Nacon shows that the middle ground is eroding. You're either a tiny indie success story or a massive corporate behemoth. Trying to exist in that space where you spend millions on production but don't have the marketing muscle of a rock star is a dangerous gamble that fewer and fewer investors are willing to take.
It is a tough spot for AA publishers. You don't have the infinite bankroll of a Sony, and if your financial timing is off by even a few weeks, the whole house of cards can come down. The Nacon situation is a grim reminder that the launch velocity we always talk about is life or death for these studios. If you don't hit those first week targets, there is no safety net anymore. The investors are looking at the potential of automated workflows and wondering why they're still funding these massive human-intensive projects if they aren't guaranteed hits. It's becoming harder and harder to justify the middle ground of game development. You either have to be a small, agile indie team with low overhead or a massive conglomerate that can eat a $100 million loss. For the studios in the middle, the pressure to deliver AAA quality on a AA budget is a recipe for burnout and bankruptcy. It's a precarious time to be a developer who just wants to make a solid, creative game that doesn't need to sell 10 million copies to break even. The market is consolidating, and with the threat of AI automation making the big studios even more efficient, the mid-tier is being squeezed from both ends. We're watching the very structure of the industry evolve into something much more polarized and unforgiving for anyone who can't pivot fast enough.
Exactly, Marcus. You either ride the wave or get drowned by it. Between AI reshaping the workflow and the GTA shadow looming over the 2026 calendar, business as usual is officially dead. The industry is in a state of hyper-evolution, and it's frankly terrifying for the smaller teams who don't have the runway to pivot. We're looking at a landscape where only the giants and the highly efficient survivors remain. The next couple of years are going to be a masterclass in adaptation, and I suspect we'll see more closures before we see more breakthroughs. But for the players, it means the games we do get are going to be more ambitious and more technologically advanced than anything we've seen before. We just have to hope that the human creativity that started this whole industry doesn't get lost in the pursuit of pure efficiency.
Well, we will be here to track which studios actually manage to evolve. It is going to be a fascinating year for hardware, software, and the people trying to survive the transition. We'll be keeping a close eye on the Nerfed.ai updates as more of these fiscal reports come in and the reality of the 2026 release schedule starts to firm up. It's a high-stakes game of chicken between creators and technology, and the fans are the ones who will ultimately decide who wins. We've seen industry shifts before, but this one feels different. It feels like the foundation is being rebuilt while we're still living in the house.
Find more episodes and context at Nerfed.ai. I'm Vanessa Calderon.
And I'm Marcus Shaw. Thanks for listening to Nerfed. Neuro Newscast is AI-assisted, human-reviewed. View our AI transparency policy at neuronewscast.com.
This has been Nerfed on Neural Newscast, where games, culture, and strategy intersect. Neural Newscast uses artificial intelligence in content creation, with human editorial review prior to publication. While we strive for factual, unbiased reporting, AI-assisted content may occasionally contain errors. Verify critical information with trusted sources. Learn more at neuralnewscast.com.